Financial freedom for me would be the time where I make money, like a lot of money, while I'm asleep.
Oh, while you're asleep.
While I'm asleep.
That
I
makes
want to
sense.
sleep and make a lot of money. Like I
Yeah.
want to sleep, wake up and have made a lot of money overnight.
Oh, gotcha.
That's
gotcha.
that's what I'm like. All right, cool. I made it.
So we're on the same page on that.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Benrolins Blueprint Podcast. I'm your host, Benrolins. I want them. Today is going to be an epic episode. I have a great guy in the house. He's my African brother. He's lived in both sides of the world. He lives in Africa and United States, specifically Nigeria. You know, Nigeria, the carry last.
You know now.
Yeah, man. I have my brother in the house, and he's no other person than the one and only Edward Ibe. Hey, Mr. Ed, how you doing today, bro?
I'm wonderful. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me over.
Man, the pleasure is all mine. Nigeria, the carry last.
You know now.
Oh, man, I'm so excited you came into the show today, and I'm glad. And I want to just, how are you doing today? How is life like?
Life is wonderful, actually. You know, I'm alive. I'm breathing. I can walk. I can talk. I can get up. I can go, hustle. I can feed myself. I'm here with you, the wonderful Mr. Rollins. Long waited. So I'm in a great position. I'm happy.
Oh, I like that. So I want to give my audience a sense of who Mr. Edward is. And living in Africa and living in America, those are two different worlds. And you've been and you've experienced those two experiences. And how is life like living in Africa for some people who don't know out there?
Well, this is always an interesting question because a lot of people see certain sides of Africa.
Yeah.
So, whenever I tell my experience, like people are always, mind blown about it. But what I can say is I actually was born here in America.
Yeah.
I was here till about third grade before I decided to move over to Africa.
Yeah.
Now, when people ask me like, how's Africa? No, we don't run with lions. We don't run with zebras. We do have houses, actually.
Yeah.
But so in my case specifically, Africa was a great experience for me. It's interesting because I like to tell people, if you ask me personally, I think I had a better life in Africa than I actually lived in America. Not saying that I lived a bad life in America here, but in Africa, you have certain things like growing up, like you have maids, you have drivers, you
Yeah.
have cooks, you have people that clean the house, you have guards. And, when I always explain this, people are laughing and, it's like, oh, wow. But, the country where I grew up in, the Gambia, it's a smaller West African country. So these things aren't necessarily luxuries. When you have a population that's not necessarily that educated, a lot of people, revert to the labor force where they carry out these kind of jobs. So I did have maids, I did have drivers, guards, laundry people, gardeners growing up. So that was pretty much the basic experience from Africa.
Yeah, I like that, and I appreciate you for sharing that. But some people are going to be like, "Hey, you said he's a Nigerian guy, and now he's saying he grew up in Gambia. So where did that happen? Like, why did you not grow up in Nigeria instead of Gambia?"
So what happened was actually when we were younger, my mother is from Gambia, and it just so happened that we had spent a couple of summers in Gambia. So like after visiting once or twice, like, my mom asked, it was obviously the decision between Gambia and Nigeria. But, like Gambia is what we knew. Gambia is my grandmother who raised us, who lived with us here in the United States. She was in Gambia. Yeah. So it was just easier and it just made more sense to, kind of go where you already knew, where you were familiar with. So that's how I ended up in Gambia and not Nigeria. But yeah, that's how Gambia came into the picture.
Okay, got you. I appreciate you for sharing that. And like growing up in Gambia, what was your aspiration as a kid? What were you thinking of becoming when you grow up?
So that's always an interesting question because growing up, I wouldn't say I had a specific aspiration. I just knew that I wanted to be rich. I wanted to make money. Yeah, exactly. So those who are familiar with the Nigerian culture, I'm actually Igbo. So in the Igbo culture, those are known to be the businessmen, the traders, and that's such. So growing up, I was always selling something into business or something. So from a very early age, I think when I was younger, I said I wanted to go into corporate law. But it was just fancy. The name sounded fancy. It sounded cool. So I was like, okay, cool. I want to go into corporate law. But as I kind of went through it, going through my school years, I stuck more to the business side. As I grew up, as I graduated, I interned. I went into the media marketing. So I generated more, kind of leaned more towards marketing. That's what I actually majored in college. But I wouldn't say I really had a specific occupation I was looking into. I just wanted to make money. That's all.
Oh, I appreciate you because sometimes like we Africans most of the times want to do business, and when you say business, sometimes to an African, the kind of business he's thinking is not the same business Americans are thinking. What he's thinking is, oh, I just want to go sell this thing and I make my money. I want to see my money at the end of the day. So that's a great point. And like even when I was a kid, I was thinking about business. At one point, I was like, hey. At one point, I was like, man, I want to be the richest man in the world.
Who hasn't had that dream?
Yeah, so man, anything to do with money, I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And when you watch like entrepreneurs and business owners, you realize that they have a sense of fulfillment. You can see that they plan and they strategize, and they're not like in a rush to like go to work, and they can like plan and have. They're not like in a position where they are desperate. They're not desperate because they know that they've really put in work throughout the years to get to the level where they are.
Absolutely.
So when I see that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a lot of inspiration that you can draw from that person. And like, yeah, business is a good way to go because now you're not just, you're not doing the business for the wrong reason. Because some people want to go into business just because they think, oh, you're just being your own boss. And when you're your boss, you ain't got to worry about nothing. But they don't know that when you're the boss, you got to wear multiple hats.
Absolutely.
And you got to take care of not just yourself, but all your employees as well.
Absolutely.
So when you see from that perspective, like, yeah, it's inspiring to not just think about myself, but to think about everybody.
Absolutely.
And make sure they're happy. Not just like, oh, I'm getting my dollars at the end of the day. And I don't care about it. Screw all the other people. But
absolutely.
So I appreciate you, man. Business is always the way to go.
Absolutely.
So when you left, how old were you when you were in Gambia?
So I went to Gambia in third grade. So I finished third grade here in America, and then I went and started fourth grade. So I would want to say probably about 10 years old, 10, 11 years old, maybe. No. So that's when I went there. And then I left Gambia when I was 19 years old. So I worked in Gambia. I went to high school, graduated, and then my mom made me stay an extra year in Gambia because she didn't think I was old enough or mature enough to come back to America and be on my own. So I did an extra year. I studied under the British curriculum in Gambia. I went to an international school where we studied the British curriculum. So they graduate the equivalent of 11th grade in America. So where people normally graduate at 12th grade, the British curriculum, you graduate in Form 5, which is the equivalent of 11th grade. Yeah, so my mom made me stay an extra year. So I did 6th form, which is, kind of like the 12th grade. And then after that, I worked. So I worked for a telecommunications company, so kind of like a T-Mobile in the Gambia, for a company there. And I did marketing and media there. So that was another journey of its own, too.
Got you. So you're coming to America now with that experience and your aspiration to become an entrepreneur. What was your next move when you got here?
So the one thing I can tell you about America is no matter what experience and no matter what background you have, you're going to start from the bottom and you're going to work your way up. So, obviously coming back, I had a very interesting ride in Gambia, in the media, doing, radio, TV, billboards, all of that. So coming to America, coming back to America was a little different because I did have to start over again. So when I say start over again, I did start working like, your regular starter job. So worked in the fast food industry, worked in retail, kind of worked my way up, went into the rental car industry, did that, went into sales. Then, I started my own business. I became an entrepreneur, started my business, and then, now came to Amazon. So that's kind of the progression. Generally, that's how I moved up. Yeah. So that was kind of my story coming back to America.
I like that. Every time when I talk to my guests and everybody who comes to Benrolins Blueprint, I always want to get to their college life.
Oh, yeah.
So let's get into that because, it's always fun to know some of the experiences you had in college. When you got to college, you left Africa, you came to America, now you're in college.
Yeah.
How was that ride like? Like, what were you feeling? Like, what did you hear about college? And when you got there, was it true or was it false?
So my college journey was a little different. I had a little bit of a different experience for a couple of reasons. Well, first reason is when I went to college.
Yeah.
When I originally came back, well, stepping back a little bit, when I originally came back to the United States, I worked and then I actually had to put myself through college.
Yeah.
So I started first, just taking 1 or 2 classes here. I went to a community college. Best way to go, by the way, if anybody's thinking about that. I went to a community college, did that a little bit, then I transferred over. So when I did transfer over to my college, I was a little older and I was working. So I didn't really have like the freshman experience where you come in, like you got to do that struggle. So I was a little older. My friends that I was with were about my age, were a little older. We were working. At the time, like I was working in the rental car industry. So I did have access to like the nicer cars. So, I was driving a nice car. I was, working. I was making money. So, my college experience was a little different. We had a lot of fun. When it comes to college, the first thing everybody thinks about is parties.
Yeah, parties.
It's an interesting story because, every time I think about college and parties, I can remember the first party, like we went to a college and the guy that I transferred in with, like, we went to this one party and then like they wouldn't let us in. And then I'm just like, yo, like, what's so big about this party? So, we slide on that party, we go to the next one. And then this party is just like, it's a party. And then it's like bring your own beer. Like, it's in a small house. So I'm just like, yo, like, what is this? So then he's like, okay, you know what? Like, we should throw our own parties. So I'm like, yeah, let's go for it. So, obviously the next, I think it was Halloween comes up and then, we make a $400 jungle juice.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, he's working, I'm working, like we're older. So, it's different. So we're like, okay, we got the money. Let's just go ahead and do it. So we make a $400 jungle juice, which is wild to me as I think about it now. And then, from then, like, that's how it's like, oh, okay. So then, all of a sudden we became the party people. So now it's like, okay, Ed and, his roommates are throwing a party. Oh, we're going over there. So now, and then that grew. And then we're like, we started throwing parties that got so big. Like at one party we threw it got so big, like we had to turn it into a block party.
Wow.
Yeah, like everybody had to go outside. And then the next morning, our leasing office calls us to the office and they're like, you guys threw a party that got so big, the police had to come break it up. And, people started to riot because they said they're not leaving. So we're going to kick you out and, all of that. So, once we got to that level, we started throwing our own parties like at venues. So we started organized parties. We named ourselves Team Liddy ENT. So if you go on YouTube, you could check out our video, Team Liddy ENT. We grew that. So that was pretty much my college experience in a nutshell, if you go down that, like what the party life was like.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, that's insane just to think about it.
Yeah.
You had a lot of fun. I can tell.
It was a good time,
And when you have that fun, it comes to the ladies too.
Well,
so how was your dating life like, buddy?
Well, I mean, it's college, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't really date until like my senior year. That's when I got with my girlfriend at the time. And, it was just kind of one of those things where it was like, hey, like, all right, you're about to graduate. Like, you kind of start chilling off on the party life. You're a little bit more low key. So that's when, but, prior to that, I didn't really get into dating. I was just, it's college, man.
What was your perspective about relationship back then?
So I think my perspective on relationships has always been the same. When I think of a relationship, a couple of things. It's any type of ship, be it a friendship, situationship, whatever you want to call it. It's a mutually beneficial agreement between two people. So be it communication. Once you all sum it up, it's beneficial. You get something that you're looking for. I get something that I'm looking for. So when you're younger, the girls is all about the play and all of that. But, like I said, when I went to college, I was a little older also. So my mindset, I had already done the Playboy stuff. I had, done all the girls, all of that, like back in the day. So, my mindset was a little different. At that point in time, my outlook on the relationship is, what can we do together? You know, what can I bring to you? What do you bring to the table? What do I bring to the table? And how is it mutually beneficial to both of us?
Oh.
So that's my outlook on a relationship. It's a mutually beneficial partnership.
Oh.
With other things included, but that's the foundation to any friendship, relationship, whatever you want to call it.
I love your point. You said it's mutual. So
Correct.
I want to come back to you and ask you this question. So when you're going into a relationship, do you have a checklist or like, hey, she got to be this, that?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a checklist, but there are a few basic things I believe that need to be met in order for any type of ship, like relationship, friendship, like I say. But specifically in a relationship, there are a few things that I say should check off. Absolutely. I'm guessing you want me to tell you what that is.
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
All right. So, I know a lot of people, the first thing that they say is communication, the usual. Now, I normally sum all of that up. Like when I think of a relationship, what I think the most important thing that must check off is compatibility. Compatibility and adaptability.
Oh, wow.
All right. And what I mean by compatibility and adaptability is as a human being, you're constantly changing.
For real.
You go through certain experiences, you witness certain things that changes you. It could be your job, it could be your living situation. You know what I'm saying? You're going to constantly change. So if you are in a relationship, what's important is you have someone who can adapt to that. Like if I'm going through this change, like how do you react? And I think that's where most relationships or some relationships tend to fall off, because it's like, oh my God, like, you were like this 3 years ago and you're no longer like this. No, I'm no longer like this. I've either grown or I've changed. So that's why I say adaptability. When I say compatibility is, I feel like a relationship, and, maybe I might be thinking further, but, even marriages, any type of relationship, I feel like it's already hard enough. But the one thing that keeps you together are the things that you share in common. So the more that you share in common, the more compatible you are, the easier and I think the longer and better the relationship is.
Oh, wow. I mean, I like your insight, by the way. Most of the times when someone wants to talk about relationship, even I myself personally, I always talk about like communication and stuff. But you coming from a different perspective, sometimes it's good to have like different angles to really understand stuff. So compatibility is a good thing, and adaptability, because at times you might not be compatible with a person.
Absolutely.
And you can communicate effectively. But if you can't like it's not worth it in the long run.
Absolutely.
In the long run, you discover that, oh, no, maybe this person is not it, and it might be too late.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you got to take everything into consideration. I like you for giving us that insight.
Of course.
So now how many relationships have you been total?
Ooh, I can't count it because some of them are, you have the unofficially officials, you have the officially unofficials. So, if you want to talk about serious relationship where I'm like, okay, like you're my girlfriend, I'm your boyfriend, I'll say what, maybe 3, 4 serious relationships. Yeah, serious relationships. Yeah.
Okay. I like that, but you know why I like that? Because like when you are really a serious guy, you don't really like throw yourself out there, and you commit yourself to things that that are really worth it, your
Absolutely.
time. And I mean, sometimes we just want to have fun and play around, but like
that's not a relationship though.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I always say this to every lady. I'm like, guys, we change only for one woman. We can play around like every lady, but we just one. And if you're not that one, it's so difficult for us to change for you. And you got to make yourself. I had a conversation with a lady. I think, when was that? Like 3 days ago? So it was an interesting conversation. So she was talking about guys. She was like, oh, guys are terrible. They're these, they're blah, blah, blah. And when you love the guy for who he is, and you just got to go all in. And she's like, oh, she's had a lot of issues in relationship. And now she's also like, oh, no, guys are just not it. I was telling her, like, every guy, we can change only for one woman. We can't change for any other woman except for that one. And you got to make yourself that woman I want to change for. Because if a guy always sees a lady from afar, they're like, oh, she's interesting. Maybe this is the one. And when they come closer and you start giving them some bad signals, or telling them like, oh, you can do this and get away with it. Once a guy knows that he can do something and get away with it, that is over. that is over because he like all your value that was all the way over here just comes down. He's just like, oh nah, this is not a lady. You gotta, as a lady, you gotta be yourself, be valuable. Let that guy chase you because we are hunters. We want, like, we're gonna chase that goal until we get it. So if you're valuable, girl, put your value up.
Absolutely.
But if you just want to tell us like, hey, you can do this and get away with it, we're just gonna like flip. And once we get what we want, we're out of there. So build your value and we're gonna go. So come back to you. I want to talk. The reason why I said that is I want to come from a guy's perspective. Like, having said that, what do you think most ladies have problems with when they encounter guys in a relationship?
Well, I don't think it's fair to the ladies out there to generalize them. So it's just like saying all men are dogs. Like they're good men, they're bad women. So I don't think I can necessarily generalize. What the common problem is. But speaking from my experience, what I would say is a common problem that women face, relationship-wise in the beginning is, back to my point of adaptability. People change.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it is true. Like, a woman may fall in love with a guy, because of this. But if the guy does change, like, are you able to accept who he's changing into? Now, if he's changing for the worst, absolutely, someone with values, someone with morals, someone who knows their worth, it's either you choose to deal with it or you choose to bounce. You know what I'm saying? But like, if you really have someone, and that's why I say compatibility and adaptability, if you really have someone who's willing to ride with you and change with you, that's the one. Well, back to the question, I think another problem is unclear expectations. Like, and when I say unclear expectations, it's common for our generation, or most of us now, to get in some kind of relationship, and it's just kind of like no title. We'll figure it out as we go. Like, we are what we are. It is what it is. So that's what I mean by unclear expectations. So now, she is thinking that, like, okay, like, this is my man. This is my guy. But at the same time, the guy might not be on that same vibe. He might be like, you know what? We never made it official. Like, we never put a title on it. So I think that's something that often happens. That's probably one of the problems, the unclear expectations. Whenever I say, I think disappointment is a result of unrealistic expectations. So when you have expectations or values that are too high and that person doesn't meet them, boom.
Yeah.
And the last one I'll say is, I think not even just women, but people in general, sometimes it's hard. You cannot hold someone accountable to the same standards you hold yourself, or you can't always hold someone accountable. So just because I would do it this way, I expect you to do it this way. No. But now you don't do it this way, or you have another perception. Like, if you don't try to understand, or you don't have empathy to try and see where I'm coming from, there's a disconnect right there.
Yeah.
And that's a common problem that would lead. So I think those are a few of to generalize. Of course, there are a million more.
Yeah.
But to just generalize the few that I've experienced, those are the ones that I'll speak on.
Oh, man. I like that insight, by the way, because, sometimes when people don't actually have titles, they're just like, the ladies, they just put themselves in that position like, oh, that's my man.
And that's a setup.
Yeah, it's like, that's my man. And like, that's the truth. If a guy does not tell you like, hey, this is official, you're my girlfriend and everything is perfect, don't put yourself in that shoe.
Absolutely.
And like, sometimes the ladies even take it one step further by thinking like, oh, marriage, engagement, and stuff like that. You're putting yourself in those shoes. And sometimes they might ask the guy like, hey, when are we getting married? It's like, are you going to ever get married in future? He's like, yeah, I want to get married. I want to have kids and that. And then the lady is going to put herself in that position saying, we're going to get married. We're going to have kids. He did not say you. He said he wants to.
Exactly.
And when you put yourself there and in the future you're disappointed, like, hey, he didn't ever say you.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing. Like, we just want to fit in.
Unclear expectations.
Yeah, that's true. Unclear expectations. So I like that, man. And now you've learned, you seem so wise when it comes to relationship. So I'm expecting, your future, your current relationship is going to be the one you tie a knot, or you still unclear?
Well, so I'm actually not in a relationship, and for multiple reasons. the last couple of years, I decided to focus on myself. And when I say focus on myself, I'm looking how to grow. You know, the African culture, you know, you don't get married until you can take care of someone. That's how they say it. But you know, mainly at the point that I am, like, you know, if I'm going to get into a relationship, it's going to be my last one. That's why I'm not jumping into any relationship. And you know, when I look at a relationship, like I said, it has to be mutually beneficial. You know, as you grow older, like, you know, I look at marriage as a business, as a partnership.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You need someone, like I said, that's willing to adapt with you. You know, as you grow, they grow. You know, as you grow, they support your growth, because there's sometimes, you know, not necessarily always, but there's sometimes you can start growing, and then, you know, especially if you're someone like who, you know, spreads their wings and fly, you know, if you have someone who's not up to that challenge, it's very easy for them to get lost in that shadow. And then, you know, all these little things start falling behind it. So that's mainly what it is, you know, I'm looking to focus on something or find someone that's, you know, we have that mutually beneficial relationship. And, you know, mutually beneficial is not even just, like I said, like, what do you bring to the table? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you communicate? Like, I over communicate. Like, I'm a raw communicator. Like, I'll tell you straight up, like, hey, this is what it is. But, you know, not everybody can take that type of feedback.
How about love? Does love come into play or not? Not at all.
So this is a funny one, and I always go back and forth with my mom about this. But you know, if you really ask, what is love?
For me,
Like, what is love? Like, what would you say, general? What is love? Like, when you say love, what is love?
like for me, I define love differently from other people. As my own definition these days, like love is a decision
Okay.
to commit and meet another person's need for the rest of the person's life and expect nothing from them.
That sounded like you got that from a book, man. That sounded like it came from a book. You know.
Oh yeah, that's my own definition, and
Okay.
I think that's great because now you're not really expecting.
Okay.
Because you know one thing that leads to disappointment is expectations.
Okay.
Once the expectations are not met, you're disappointed.
Okay.
But if you don't have any expectation at all, it's not like you're not going to think highly of the person. You're going to think highly of the person, but it does not mean if this lady leaves, I'm going to die.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
But you have to have some kind of expectations.
Yeah.
If I took you to the airport and I'm like, all right, get on this plane, but it's going somewhere, you don't know where it's going.
I'm not going to get it.
I think you use that line, right?
Yeah,
You use that line. Exactly. So, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm not getting it.
exactly. So you use that
Yeah,
line.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, but there's gonna be you gotta hold a person to high standard, but not like the person is your all in all. Without the person, you can't breathe, you can't live, you can't survive. So that's the way I look at it. I mean, there's gonna be feelings involved eventually, but you don't always got to think about only the feelings.
Yeah, I agree with that. But, you know, like I say too, like, I think unrealistic expectations does lead to disappointment. So, you know, you have to have some kind of like simple expectation is like, if you're in a relationship with someone, right?
Yeah.
You expect loyalty from them.
Of course.
That's not an unreasonable expectation.
Yeah.
Okay, you expect communication from them. That's not an unreasonable expectation. So there has to be some kind of expectation. But I guess, like, you know, where you could say expectation, it's not like I'm expecting you, like, oh, you have to do this. Well,
Yeah.
depending on what it is. But you know, like, if you really ask me what love is, like, it all bubbles down back to, you know, compatibility and adaptability.
Really?
Yes, because you know, like, what is love? Like, you know, it's common for people to confuse love with lust. But like, you know, when I think of love, I'm thinking about like the long game. All right. Like, if you love me, right, when I'm broke, are you gonna stay? You know what I'm saying? Like, when I'm at my worst, would you stay? Would you hold me down? You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to really have a certain commitment. You have to really have some kind of dedication to ride through, because, you know, you think about love and, you know, it's all lovey-dovey about the good times. But I think where love really comes to the challenge and where you can really define what love is in those hard times. Like, when we have a disagreement, when we argue, like, how do we overcome that? Like, what do we do? Do you just, you know, go to your corner and I go to my corner and sit down? Like, you know, that's what love is. I think love is the explanation of the situation, if that makes sense. So it's interesting, but that's what I think about.
Yeah,
love,
that's a dope definition, by the way.
expectation of the situation.
Yeah, from Mr. Ed, man. I like that, by the way. Your perspective is kind of different.
Absolutely.
And I like that. You know why? Because we Africans, we have our own different expectations when it comes to relationship as a whole. And in African culture or African society, as a man, before you want to get into relationship, you know your responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
And you know you're about to take care of this lady, everything about her. You're not going in saying, oh, 50-50. American kind of 50-50. No, like they don't really care about that. Like you're the man, that's your responsibility.
Absolutely.
If the woman works, it's a plus for you. But it's not as if her duty is to like take care of you or nothing. You are the one to make sure everything is good in the home. And we grew up that way. Correct. And that is one thing that makes us different, I would say.
Absolutely.
So I really appreciate you for giving us that insight. And Africa, oh yeah. Yeah. So let's go to something else. Before I move to anything, is there anything you wanted to touch on relationship before we move?
Oh no, I think we covered it all.
Okay.
We touched the major points. So
okay, I like that.
We're in there.
So I want to go into. You spoke about enterprise.
Correct.
So what were you doing in enterprise?
So enterprise, I started as a management trainee, and I worked myself kind of up through the program. So I ended up as a branch manager. I worked all over. I've worked at Reagan Airport, Dulles Airport, BWI Airport, Salisbury Airport. My last role, I ran one of the larger operations in Montgomery County in the Rockville area. So, the branch manager is pretty much responsible for the operation, the strategic and operational aspect of the business. So, productivity, production, cost, training, development, coaching, hiring, firing, all the good stuff. That was how far I went up in there. Yeah.
Oh wow! So what made you make the switch?
So I got to a point in my career, I just wanted to try something new. I've always been a salesperson. I've always been selling. So I thought I wanted to do sales. So I made a career switch and I went into sales, which I did not like at all. I went into B2B sales consulting, and I absolutely hated it. So that's what made me make the switch from that. But
yeah, sales is a particular skill.
Oh yeah,
and you have to be at the top level in order to get into that. I've done sales before, and it's not easy. It's not that easy. Sometimes when you hear people's story about selling, you hear how this guy is making a lot of money from selling that, and you're just like, oh, let me go do that. And when you get it, you're like, oh my God,
oh no,
this is really hard. It's really hard, and you have to be used to rejection.
Okay, for sure.
Because you're going to be rejected more than you're going to be accepted.
For sure.
And for you to have that deal, you got to put your grind to another level.
Absolutely.
And I love sales because when you do sales, it teaches you a lot about life.
Oh, yeah.
A lot about life. And like life is not all the sunshine and rainbows and stuff like that. It's all about the hard work.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to put hard work. Sometimes your hard work might not be good enough. And you got to figure out a way to get it to that level where you're not just making sure the customer, the client or prospect, or the prospect is sitting there, not just feeling you being like tense and nervous just to get that deal on the line.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I want to get it. But you calm, relax. How do you communicate effectively? How do you make your prospect feel comfortable and know that this thing is going to help them and not just like, hey, I just want to get the numbers.
Yep.
I've not had no. And sometimes people just go to sales when people are doing sales and it's based on commission. If they don't get the sales, it's so tough for them to survive. So they just go in all in, and they're like, oh my God, if I fail, I'm gone.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, man, sales is really hard. For those who are doing sales, I just salute to y'all, man, because that's really an impressive skill. And when you see someone who does it, it's just like, that's an easy thing.
Oh no.
But it's really hard.
Absolutely not. And I've done, sorry to cut you off, but like I've done both kinds of sales. So I've done business to business and I've done business to consumer. So business to consumer, I started actually with, I did it Sears. So back in the day, I started with small appliances like vacuums, microwaves, little stuff like that. That I went into larger appliances. So microwaves, fridges, washing machine, dryers, dishwashers. Then I switched over to electronics. So I sold TVs. And this was back in the day when like TVs were expensive. Like a 70-inch would cost you like $5,000 by the time you put in the package protections and all of that stuff. So it's definitely a different skill set. And when I did business to business, I sold software. So I sold software, and it was a very different market also. I think what I did not enjoy most was like I hated cold calling. I was okay with the rejection, but at some point I remember one day I was hitting dials, and I was ripping through dials, and then my mom walks up the stairs and she goes, "Oh, I see your job is, so you're a telemarketer." And I'm like, nah, I'm hitting sales. So, but like, that's one thing. It's a great field. The nice thing about sales is when it's good, it's great.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
it's
saying?
awesome.
It's awesome.
It's phenomenal.
But when it's not hitting, it's not hitting.
Man,
So,
you seen the whole world coming
yeah.
to an end.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
you're just
it's
how am I
rough.
gonna survive?
oh yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, man. So what did sales teach you about like life as a whole?
So I would say one, consistency. Sales definitely taught me that like you got to keep going. Like, what I'm saying? Like, and I think like just building your pipeline. Like, you have to constantly put business in.
Yeah.
Like, the worst thing you ever want to get caught on in a sales job is a dry pipeline.
Yeah.
You always want to have something going on, something coming in. Like, you have to be consistent with it. I think definitely discipline, because when I went into sales, actually, I came from the rental car industry. So the rental car industry has a lot of structures. Like, I come in, I know I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I need to do this. Like, what you're going to do. But like, sales is just kind of like, all right, here's your computer, here's your phone, go make some money.
Yeah.
So you got to discipline yourself. Time management, that I learned a lot of time management when I was in sales. Time management's important. Personality, I think I've always been a pretty personable person. I've been able to, get people to, you could relate, talk to somebody and vibe with them. But, it's a different story when it comes down to like, all right, I know you like me now, but hey, I need you to spend like $20,000 or $50,000 on this product. So, definitely finding out what the consumer's need is and bridging that, how you can fulfill the customer's need with your product that you have to offer. So it's definitely a different skill set there.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, my own experience in sales, I sold like the solar panels.
Oh,
So mine was like door to door.
Yo, you were doing door to door. Yeah.
So that was pretty, oh my
yeah.
God, it was intimidating.
Oh, I know.
Like, especially when you go, you knock on someone's door and the person opens like, not interested.
Yeah.
Bam! They just slammed the door. You feel like,
Oh, yeah.
wow, it was really, really hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might believe in your product, know how to like give a sales pitch, but now your pitch might be good enough, but there's just that's something lacking, and you're just like, what? Where is that thing, bro? Where is that thing? And sometimes you're gonna knock, and sometimes they're gonna tell you that, hey, it's a numbers game. You knock $100, you might get one.
Yeah.
You knock $1,000, you might get 2 or 10. So just keep knocking. Just keep knocking.
Persistent consistency, man.
And the thing is, when you're knocking, sometimes you might knock for the whole day and you get nothing.
Absolutely.
And the next day, your first door, you get a deal.
Yeah.
And you knock the first door, you get a deal. Knock the second door, you get a deal. And sometimes you're just like, wow, how is this possible? But that's how it is. You just got to be consistent.
Absolutely.
And you believe in yourself. But the thing is, when you're rejected, bro, it takes a toll on you, man.
Yeah, it does. But that's
takes a toll.
That's the thing too that sales kind of teaches you. Like, in life, that's literally how life is. Like, what I'm saying, like, you may fail. You're going to fail. You're going to get rejected. You're going to fall.
Yeah.
But it's not about how many times you get rejected or how many times you fall. It's how many times you get back. How many times you get back up.
Yeah.
Like, that's a wonderful thing, which is why I think everybody should know some type of sale, because you have to be able to take that no, you have to be able to take that rejection, but still stand up and move on to the next. You can't let it get to you.
Yeah.
So, and that's life in general. It's not about how many times you fall. It's how many times you get up and keep going. So that's another
Yeah,
blessing.
and to me now, I think like the sales experience I had taught me a lot about life, and I think that's the foundation for business.
Absolutely.
Sales.
Absolutely.
You got to know how to sell.
Absolutely.
Because
That's
you might have the best business plan in the world, but if you're not selling your product, you're going to go out of business.
Absolutely.
And like going to talk to the customers or the like prospects on a one-on-one basis is pretty impressive because you kind of connect with the people using your product, and you kind of understand like where they're coming from actually, the angle, the perspective. How do they like the product? What are some of the things they dislike about it? And those information or those like those stuff are really valuable. And sometimes you take them for granted, but you don't know like. Even though some people say the customers are not always right, I say the customers
The
are
customer's always right.
because they have the money.
They have to, yeah.
Yeah, they have the money. And if you don't think your customers is funding you, bro, you're gonna go out of business.
You know what my one of my old managers used to tell me. They used to tell me like, do you want to be right or do you want to be rich? So if the customer being right is what's gonna make you rich, you got it. That's why I say the customer's always right. Like, if them being right is gonna make you that money, it's all you. You're right. You got it. So
Yeah, that's
you want to be
true.
right or do you want to be rich? So
And that's true.
you gotta pick your poison.
You just gotta be right or you gotta be rich.
Which one do you want?
I like to be rich. So
Exactly.
make that customer happy and
got
good to
it.
go. And I had one experience in sales. Like one time, I knocked on this lady's door, and she came out. She was like, "Oh yeah, I'm interested." And sometimes when a prospect is interested in your deal, they're not going to like just come out and like, "Hey, I'm interested." They'll want you to like say you just present your pitch first, and then they'll be like, and I will discover something. Most of the clients or the prospects who are always interested are the people who have been looking for that product somewhere somehow. And when they see you now, they're not going to tell you that they've been looking for that product. They will want you to present yourself, and then they're going to start thinking of like That's why if you don't believe in yourself and you present your information in a calm and composed manner, you're going to lose that deal.
Absolutely.
Because it's all about communication. That's why I always say communication is a key.
For sure.
Communication is a key
Sure.
to success or to failure. If you communicate effectively, you're going to get any deal you want. But if you don't, it's going to be really hard.
It's interesting though, because my sales leader used to tell me three things. He's like, customers are going to buy for three things: need, value, cash.
Yeah.
If it's either they have a need for it,
Yeah.
or if they don't buy for you, it's because they don't have a need for it, they don't see the value in it, or they don't have the cash for it.
Yeah.
So you got to figure out, real quick, like which one of them, like you got to find out, like, do they need it? Do they see the value? And, sometimes, like you said, like, a customer may need it, but, they haven't seen the value of it.
Yeah.
And, I learned that, because it's just like when I would try to sell somebody like a $300 vacuum, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can buy this vacuum for $50. Like, why should I buy a $300 vacuum?
Yeah.
But again, you got to show them the value. Like, all right, I'll shred up some paper, put it on the phone. I'm like, hey, vacuum this up.
Yeah.
And I'll take a $50 vacuum. I'm like, yeah, you vacuum this up. Like, you tell me what you see the difference is. So those three definitely, that's part of the sales process.
And that taught me how to ask questions too.
Oh, yeah.
Ask questions and listen.
80-20, baby.
Ask question and listen. Because, most salespeople, what make them not get the deal is because most of the times they're asking questions. Oh, they have the pitch. They just want to go according to the script. And then when you get there, you just knock on the door. Hey, my name is that. And then before you know, the customer like, not interested.
Yep.
And that's, man, I learned a lot. You just got to go with the flow. Well, just make something playful.
Oh, yeah. You
just say, hey.
You got to read the vibe.
Sometimes when I come, I'll just say, oh, I love this car. This is my dream car right here.
That's building rapport. Very important in the sales process.
And you just see the guy will just start laughing like, oh, yeah. And that you got the person attention that time.
Absolutely.
To give your, because you have 5 seconds. 5 seconds.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky, you got 5 seconds. And if you don't get that customer's attention or that prospect attention in 5 seconds, the deal is off. The deal is off. So when I'm coming, I'm just like, man, what can I do to get that person's attention?
Yeah, you got to.
And
Quick.
if you don't get it, you're just like, oh man, you have to build a lot of rapport to get back on track.
Absolutely.
And it's tough to get back.
Absolutely.
So you have to ask questions and listen.
Yeah.
That's when I learned the art of listening.
Oh, yeah.
Listening with the intention to understand.
Absolutely.
Not listening with the intention to respond.
Yep. That's
Because
important.
that's like one of the techniques that are really valuable in life. Because most of the times we're just listening just to respond. Like, hey, this guy's saying something. How can I respond quickly to make sure, oh, he knows that, oh, I'm not dumb, or I know what I'm actually talking about. But you don't really understand the information. But when you listen with the intention to understand where the prospect is coming from, you actually figure out that, oh, there's some gaps.
Yep.
And how can you like use that gaps to your advantage? Not like you're ripping the customer or the prospect off, but you're trying to understand him and you're giving value to that customer. And man, it was a great experience, and I love it. But it's really, really hard. So if you're going to sales, just prepare yourself and brace yourself. You're gonna learn a lot of things about life, but it is not easy.
Kudos to the people already in sales doing their thing.
Yeah, shout out to y'all. So yeah, Mr. Edward,
Yes,
coming
sir.
back to you. Let's just round up with sales.
Okay.
So when you left sales, what was your next move?
That's pretty interesting because when I left sales, I actually went back to Africa. So I went and just chilled in Africa for a little bit. I'm like, all right, like, it's out of sales. Let me go back. I was actually focusing on my business at the time. So I was working on my business. If I haven't told you, I am a Turo All-Star host. I don't know if you've ever heard of Turo.
No.
Okay, so
What's that?
Turo is like an Airbnb for cars.
Oh.
Yeah, so coming from the rental car industry, in 2021, I decided that, one day I was sitting down and I think I was just messing around on Instagram, and then, I was reading about like an LLC and the benefits of an LLC. And I think I just Googled like how to get rich or how rich people stay rich. And then, I saw all of this information about like businesses and all of like, through an LLC, through a corporation. And I'm like, you know what? Let me see what this is about. So bells started ringing. So I started my own business. I started with one car, gently grew my fleet. So now that's what I do. I'll lease cars and rent them out on the Turo app. So I'm a Turo All-Star host now. So I was at the time I was focusing on that. But after sales, like I went to Africa and I chilled in Africa for a little bit, just kind of reset, get my mind back.
Yeah.
Then I came back and I'm like, okay, you know what? I got to find something to do.
So before we get to Amazon, and before we get to this in the business part, why do you always go to Africa?
So for a couple of reasons, I have family there. I have property there.
Yeah.
So I go back to check in with that. And I just kind of go back to just, get a refresher, for refresh my mind. The lifestyle in Africa is a little different. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to explain, but like when you're back home or when you're in Africa, there's certain stresses that you don't experience while you're in America.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
that stress of having to wake up and go grind, you don't have that.
It's kind of slow pace.
Exactly. Slow pace is chill. Like, like when I go to Africa, I wake up in the morning and the first thing the maid is like, hey, what do you want me to make you for breakfast? You know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, oh, cool. You know what I'm saying? Like when I take my clothes off, like the next time I see my clothes, it's washed, folded,
and ironed,
put away from me. And, like everything you eat is organic. Like, they go to the market in the morning to get fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. Like sometimes I go to the beach side and I'll literally watch the fishermen come in, and from their fish that they just, got, like I'll pick one out and I'll have it grilled for me on the spot.
Really delicious.
You know what I'm saying? So you're eating those experiences, just being around family, all of those. So like I go every year just to kind of like, obviously handle business, but just to like reset. And I feel like every time I go to Africa, or when I go back to my home country in Gambia, I come back with a certain type of motivation. Like, when you see a struggle you see opportunity, like you appreciate what you have more.
Yeah.
Also, I have a couple of rich friends. So like when I see them, I'm like, damn, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I went to school with this guy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, even though we're both well off, but I'm just like, okay, it pushes me to do more. So I always kind of get my motivation from back home. I get a mental reset also. So that's kind of why I go back and forth.
So if someone is watching now and the person has never been to Africa, what will you tell the person about Africa?
Oh man, you got to go. And, for multiple reasons, actually, just to experience, it's very different. I know people always see one side of Africa.
Yeah.
It's what they see on TV, or they say, oh, the safari and all of that. But I just think, the quality of life, when I tell people, like, I feel like I have a better living in Africa than I do here. Like, they always look at me like, oh, you're crazy, I'm like that. But, it's great to experience, like, a lot of people, I tell them, you're just knowing your roots also, too. Like, you'll be surprised. Like, a lot of things make sense, like, when you see its origin, like the motherland. Like, I've been to Garret, like the slave, like where they used to trade the slaves. And, I've been to the forts, all of that. So just seeing the natural, like where it all began and, just that experience, like it's hard to explain. Like anybody who's been to Africa or, has African origins and like goes back and forth like I do, they can attest to this and, they'll explain to you, but there's a certain stress that you only experience when you're in America. Yeah.
And that's true. So last question on Africa. Pick 3 countries that you would like or recommend someone who's not been to Africa to check out.
So I always say, obviously, if you want to go on like a safari, if you want that safari-ish experience, I'll always say like East Africa, like Kenya,
Tanzania.
like Tanzania, exactly. Those Eastern countries. I would say the western side of Africa is more cultural.
Yeah.
I'm gonna rep Gambia. I'm always gonna say Gambia, the smiling coast. If you want lovely beaches and the good stuff, go to Gambia. I would definitely say Nigeria.
Yeah, Nigeria.
Nigeria is a country of its own. There's no place in the world like Nigeria. So if you're curious and you want an experience, absolutely Nigeria.
Oh my Ghanaian friends will be like, this guy, come Ghana.
Well, Ghana lit too, man. Ghana's lit, but Nigeria, know.
Nigeria, the carry last. Okay, I like that. And now let's move into business.
Oh, business. There you go.
So you were thinking about like starting a business, like checking out LLCs and how billionaires sustain their worth. So what made you to start doing the cars? What was that, Turo?
Turo, yeah.
Yeah, Turo.
So I've always been a businessman. I've always been selling something. Like when I was in high school, maybe even a little earlier, I would buy like the textbooks. So like when school was over and everybody was like, oh, done with education, like I would buy their textbooks from them. Some of them they'll just give it to me. And then the next semester, when books are expensive, I'll sell those books.
Yeah.
Then I went into phones. Like I would literally go to the black market. If anybody knows about the black market, like I would literally buy a phone. I'll go spend the whole day in the black market, sell that, get another phone. So I'm always flipping something. Then what? Then I went to college. I was selling hoverboards when they first came out. So I bought a whole bunch of hoverboards from China. My whole refund check, put it on that, and then started selling them. Then I sold drones for a little while. So I'm always selling something. So I've always had that entrepreneurial mindset. But I think one day, like I said, when I was just Googling like riches, how people stay rich and all of that, like I was reading about an LLC or corporation, business write-offs, how tax refunds work and all of that. So I'm just like, you know what? Like, I think I need to do one. And then, I also got to that point where I started figuring out that, like the only way to get rich is to work for yourself.
Yeah.
Or, generate your own stream of income or, just multiple streams of income. So I dibbled and dabbled. I traded stocks. I traded Forex. I traded like gold, those things, indices, just different ways to find streams of income. I looked into, I can't remember the name of the thing where they make you go to a class and then one of those pyramid triangle things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what it came down to is
multi-level marketing.
Exactly. It's like, okay, you get this, you sign 10 people, then you 10 people. Yeah. So I looked into about like 3 of those and I'm just like, all right, I don't have time. It works. It works for some. Don't get me wrong. I've seen some people be very successful in it, but it wasn't just for me personally. I looked into vending machines. I looked into creating businesses and selling businesses, which I still actually currently do. I looked into YouTube content creation.
Yeah.
I was telling you about my YouTube channel that accidentally blew up overnight.
Yeah.
It got like 1 million views.
Yeah.
I still have that, looking to sell that too. But what really got me thinking was I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna do business, I need to do something I like. You know, I believe that if you do something you love, it's not really work.
Yeah.
So I really thought about it. I just knew that I love cars. So I'm like, okay, like I work for a rental car company. I've been in the rental car industry for 8 years now. Like I know how to do this. I understand this. And I'm just thinking, and I'm like, okay, like what can I really do? So one day it like really struck me. And then I think I was on Instagram again and I saw Turo. So I'm like, Turo. I'm like, okay. And then I'm looking and reading up on it. And it's like how much you can make from having 1 car, from 2 cars, 3 cars, 4 cars. And then it all clicked. I'm like, okay, LLC, like if I start Turo, I could buy a car in my LLC. I can buy a car that I've always wanted and I would have to pay for it. You know, everything would be a write-off. So, you know, bells just started clicking, ding, ding, ding. So I'm just like, you know what? One day I just closed my eyes and I went to the dealership and I met my sales connect. And then he was just like, you know, just talking about it, you know, running numbers. I'm like, hypothetically, if I wanted this, And I'd already done research on like how to price cars and all of that. And again, I worked in the rental industry for 8 years. So this is something I do every day. So I'm familiar with it. So, you know, just jokingly, he's like, yeah, if you want this car, I'll da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, for real, run the numbers. And then, you know, next thing I knew, I was walking out with a car. So I put that on Turo. And then, you know, that grew, moved to 1 car, 2 cars, 3 cars. Then I expanded. I started to partner. So from now 3 cars that I own, I also work with other people who have cars. You know, before you know it, I bought my dream car. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, you know, I could make business. I could drive my dream car, and boom, that's how that business started.
Man, I like that. I like that, and I appreciate you for sharing that because you know sometimes people want to do business, but they don't really have the guts to start. They're just like, oh well, I'm gonna start tomorrow. I'm going to start next week, next month, next year, and they don't really do it. So you're just looking at stuff like, hey, I want to do this, and you already had the business mentality and the entrepreneurial mindset already. That was great. And doing that, because business is the way to go.
Absolutely.
It is the way to go. I mean, it might not be the thing for everybody, but if you really have that urge to start a business, definitely check it out.
I think a business can be for everybody. And, you know, and anything in life, I think the difference between the people that actually make it and the people that don't is like, you know, everything, you just got to go with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, you don't make it overnight. Like, everything starts, like, even if it's one baby step, it's one step towards something. So, you know, people dream about stuff, you know what I'm saying? But the people that actually succeed are the people that turn those dreams into realities. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't happen overnight. Like, you know, in my case, I just woke up one day and was like, yeah, but, you know, like I said, like, you know, before I even started my business, I ran it by a couple of people and they told me, like, don't do that. That doesn't make sense. Like, what's going to happen if you do this? What's going to happen if you do that? But, you know, at the end of the day, like how I look at anything in life, you should not be afraid to take a loss because I say there's never a loss. With every loss comes a lesson. And, you know, if you fail, you know, you learn something to not do next time. There's always a lesson. So there's never a loss. Look for the lesson, not at the loss. The more lessons you learn, the more knowledgeable you become. Knowledge is power. The more knowledge you have, the more powerful you are. That's how I look at it. So anybody can get into business. It just takes that first step. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so profound. What you just said there. The more lessons you have, the more knowledge you have. Because, you know, sometimes when you fail, it's not really failure. It's just a temporal defeat.
Absolutely.
And you got to look at it that way. And when you fall down, fall on your back and look forward. If you can look up, you can get up.
Absolutely.
And when you get up, you're going to see life from a different perspective.
Absolutely.
A different angle. And you know that, oh, I'm equipped. I know what it takes to get to the next level.
Absolutely.
Even though I failed so many times, I can still step forward and I'm going to succeed. But if you don't have that self-belief, you can't even have the self-belief if you don't fail.
Of course. What is it? The guy that made the light bulb. Is it Thomas Edison or something
Thomas
like that?
Edison.
How many times did the light bulb fail before he got it
like
right.
thousands of times.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like
Times.
you have to fail. Like,
you have to fail.
any successful business person, entrepreneur, anybody successful, like if you ask them their success stories, like there's always failure. You have to fail.
Yeah.
And you need to fail to learn something new. So you cannot fear failure.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
The good thing is once you succeed, they're going to forget about the failures.
Absolutely.
They're going to talk about your successes. Yeah. And all of a sudden, you become an overnight success.
Absolutely.
But they don't know that people are rewarded in public for what they practice for years and years in private.
Absolutely.
Before you want to come out, you have to like grind.
You got to.
Put in the work in. And before you know it, people say, oh, overnight success.
Oh, no.
But they don't know the days when you were home, sitting alone, grinding, strategizing, like, hey, how can I get this to the next level? What can I do? How can I improve? How can I create an impact in in the society I live in today and my community?
Absolutely.
So, man, business is the way to go. Like you said, for everybody.
Yeah.
So think about business, guys. Please just check it out, and you never know, you might be the next Elon Musk. Yeah, man. So coming back to you, what did all that business experience like teach you about like yourself?
So what it taught me specifically is that really what you put your mind to, you can do. Because before I got into business, a lot of people, tell me, oh, don't do that. Like, oh, what if this doesn't work? What if? But they say the fastest way to kill a big dream is to tell it to a small-minded person. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't see my vision, if you don't understand where I'm going, like it doesn't make sense to you. And even I've taken that, when with my people that I work with or anybody that works for me, like I always support them in whatever their dream or whatever their goals are, because I tell them, like, you know what, I may not understand it, I may not see it, but as long as you believe it, I will support you whichever way I possibly can. So that's one thing that business taught me. It definitely taught me that there are ups and downs in anything. Yeah. Sometimes it's going to be good, sometimes it's going to be bad. I had a huge major setback when one of my vehicles broke down. I had a vehicle on a trip and my car broke down in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Yeah, in Pennsylvania. So when I got the car to the dealership, they're telling me, boom, you need a brand new engine.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah. And, they're talking about $25,000 for a new engine, $12,000 to install it.
What kind of car is that?
That was a Range Rover.
Oh.
It's a Range Rover, yeah. So, I have my own, but I'm not gonna talk about that. My own beliefs about Range Rovers, but they're great cars. They're fancy cars, they're nice cars. But I learned my lesson from it. And even that setback, like people told me, like, oh, you see, I told you it's not gonna work. Like you don't know your class. Like, who told you to go get a Range Rover? If you had got something a little bit cheaper, and there was a lot of that. But at the end of the day, like I said, what I looked at was the lesson, and for a long time, it had me messed up, because I'm like, man, how am I gonna, what am I gonna do? Like, they want like what, 25, like almost 40 grand, you know what I'm saying? And I'm talking to the guy on the phone, and he's like, yeah, 25,000 for a new engine, 12,000 to install it. But if you want, we can buy your car from you. Yeah, I'm like, how much? He's like, $2,000. I'm like, what? Like, so I'm like, $40,000. Like, I could just go buy a new car.
Yeah.
But I still got this loan on this one, and then so it was crazy for me, because I was like, how am I gonna solve this? Like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what to do. Like, where am I gonna get 40 grand from? But sitting back, you gotta focus. You can't focus on what you don't have.
Yeah.
So I sat down and like, okay, what do I have? What are my options? Like, what can I do? Excuse me. I know what I can't do, but what can I do? So, just kind of sitting back. That's part of the reason also why I went to Africa. So I'm like, all right, I gotta go figure this out in Africa, So, just kind of sitting down, things kind of came back to me. And, just out of one day, like, it just worked out. So, I battled back and forth with my warranty company. I was able to get them, to investigate it. And I went back and forth with, the dealership. I went back and forth with the manufacturer. And then I finally figured out like, all right, I'm just gonna get a secondhand engine. Right. So luckily for my connections from the rental car industry, I had a great mechanic, shout out to him, that was like, okay, you know what, like I'll do everything. I'll get an engine, I'll replace it, and it's only gonna be like 25 grand. So I'm like, okay, now at least we're down from 40 to 25 now.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking back, like, what can I do now? So 25, I'm talking with the warranty company, like, yo, da 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 da. They're like, no, we're not covering it, blah blah blah. So finally, like, okay, you know what? That's a courtesy. We'll pay for 10 grand. So I'm like, okay, I'm down to 15 now. You know what I'm saying? Like, how am I going to figure this 15 out, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, back again, looking at resources, boom, 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 boom. I find 5. I'm like, all right, cool. Almost there. I just need to figure out 10.
10.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that I move things a couple around here, do this, do that, boom. I finally come up with the 10. But you know what I'm saying? And, after everything hit me, when I finally paid for the car, got it out, and it was back and running, this is almost after like 8-9 months, I'm sitting down and I'm reflecting and I'm like, once upon a time, I sat down here worrying about how I'm going to make 40 grand. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know how I was going to make it. And anybody I would talk to, I'd be like, yo, like I'm in a tough spot. Like I need 40 grand. I don't know where I'm going to get 40 grand from, But then, I sit down, I'm like, that was once upon a time. Now here I am, cars back on the road, it's catching up. It is. So, the main lesson here is that, whatever you're going through, whatever whatever challenges, it's not how you fall. It's not many times you fall. It's how you get back up.
Yeah.
I fell down on that one. I'm back up. I've learned a huge lesson for next time. Yeah. So I know how to prevent that. I know if it does happen. And, by just doing that, like, I have the confidence. Like, I'm like, I know now at least 15 grand. I could pull 15 grand out of somewhere. I've done it before, so I could do it again. So, that's one of the lessons. But, like I say, always look for the lesson. There's going to be a loss, but look for the lesson in the loss. Yeah. I also know what kind of car to not buy again, so.
Give us a hint.
Oh, no. Starts with an R.
Yeah, man. But, man, that experience, I can just imagine what you went through.
It was rough.
Yeah, it was really rough.
Because the thing about it is, like, even though, I owe 40 grand, I need 40 grand to fix this car. The car's sitting in the dealership. The bank is still asking for their payment at the end of the month.
Oh yeah, they cannot.
Oh yeah, so the bank's expecting their payment. Your insurance company is expecting their payment also. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's not only the 40 grand, it's the 40 grand plus your note, your insurance, and all of that. So, lucky for me, I had other vehicles on the road that was kind of able to cover it. But when you're talking about like a Range Rover, it's still a heavy hit. It's still a huge hit.
Yeah, man. Wow, I'm glad you came out of that experience stronger and wiser.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's a good one. And now that was your personal life. What was some of the toughest challenges you faced in business as a whole?
I think that was the business one. That was definitely the biggest one, that breakdown. But in terms of other business challenges, navigating a new space, even though I had some kind of experience coming from the rental car industry, navigating a new space, when everything is new, when you're doing something for the first time, it's the fear of the unknown is in there too. Like, you don't know what you're getting into. I think I had a lot of people to prove wrong, because a lot of people are like, oh, don't do it, it's not gonna work, this. So that pressure too. But like, it's just gotta roll with it, man. Like, but I definitely think that the biggest challenge with the business was that fallback.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, that mechanical break. That hurt.
Yeah, 40 grand.
Yeah, that hurt. Luckily it ended up being 25, which they paid 10 of. So I only had to put 15, but
man,
I could have bought a new car for that,
I'm really glad you went through that stuff and you had some really valuable lessons and experience. Now you're a wise man.
Absolutely.
And thank you for giving us that insight.
Absolutely.
That's what Benrolins Blueprint is all about.
There you go.
Give the life story. I will learn from it. Let's go. So now let's move from this thing, your Turo business, and move. What's the other thing are you doing right now?
So I do sell the course for anybody who wants to learn how to do a Turo. During my journey of entrepreneurship, looking at like one person I really looked up to. I don't know if you ever heard of CEO Matty J.
Matty J?
Yeah, Matty J. He's this guy in Atlanta, but his famous line is document the process. You know what I'm saying? So anything he does, like, he documents it. And once he documents it, he calls it a play. So if he does something, he'll call it, oh yeah, the hotel play. Like if he gets some clothes, he'd be like, yeah, the Louis Vuitton play. So, he was a Turo host also. So from him, I'm like, okay, you know what? It makes sense. So, a couple of people asked me like, oh, I want to start the business. How do I do that? So I actually documented my process. So everything from registering a business, starting a business, buying a car, insuring a car, the upkeep of the car, partnering. I documented all of that, and then I put that into a Word document, an Excel sheet as well also. So anybody that wants to learn the course, like I'll teach it to them and sell them that information. I also told you about the content thing. So my YouTube channel, I have a YouTube channel that blew up overnight. So that's kind of up for sale too. So that's another hustle. But kind of also what I've learned about recently is which I'm probably gonna get into in a little bit. Like people register businesses and start businesses, but there are people that actually like build businesses, start businesses, and then build business credit from it. So you get a line of credit, get credit, and once you have business credit established, let's say you want to start a business. Instead of you starting a business from scratch, I can sell you my business.
Yeah.
So, that's something I'm kind of working on with a couple of other people now. Hopefully we'll have a couple up ready to launch shortly, and then we'll do that. But yeah, those are my hustles. I'll probably get into real estate a little bit once I get back to Africa. I'll
so
see
what
if I could flip.
What's your end goal in business?
I just want to make some money, man. I just want to be rich. But
give me a number.
See, I'm really not of a number guy. Like, you know what I'm saying?
So
like,
let's just assume if I have this, I'm gonna be like self-sustained and financially free.
So I'll say when I get to the point where, well, I wouldn't even say that, but like when you get to like financial freedom for me would be the time where I make money, like a lot of money while I'm asleep.
Oh, while you're asleep?
While I'm asleep.
That makes
I want to
sense.
sleep and make a lot of money. Like I want to sleep, wake up and have made a lot of money overnight.
Oh, gotcha.
That's when I'm like, all right, cool, I made it.
So we're on the same page in that. Yeah, because even I want to do the same thing. I want to be able to sleep while making money.
Absolutely.
I don't got to be working and making money. That's where I'm trying to like be myself to that level. And it might sound impossible, but it's big and it takes a lot of consistency, commitment, and dedication and hard work to get to that level.
Well, it's possible though.
Yeah, it's possible. And you got to believe. And because I always draw inspirations from people who have done it. If someone has done it, it's possible.
It's possible, absolutely.
No matter the odds. The odds, I mean, for me, the odds are like 1,000,000% against me. More 1 billion%, by the way. But I'm going to get there.
Well, like I said, come to the tour. Yeah. Like I make money when I sleep. It's not a lot, but it's a little bit of money.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah.
So now, we're wrapping up now. All these life experiences with relationship, with business, career-wise, what are you going to say Mr. Ed is? How are you going to describe yourself right now?
So, how would I describe myself? So, I would describe myself as a continuous work in progress. I would describe myself as extremely curious.
Like that.
I'm the type of person that I want to know why. I want to know how. I would say highly motivated. I've seen success. I know what success is like. I've seen failures. I know what failures are like. And at this point, like I just know that I'm determined and I want to get to a certain point. I don't have a number. I don't have a place, but I know eventually to a point, like I said, where I can sleep and make money. I would say very humbled. I've had a lot of experiences, that brought me back to earth. I've had highs, I've had lows, but I think, like the journey of life is constant, ups and downs. I always say, and I always preach, it's not about how many times you fall down. It's about how many times you can actually pick yourself and get up, So that's what I would say about, where I am and how I am right now.
Yeah, I really like that. And I got two more questions for you.
Yeah, I keep them coming.
So if there was one experience that you could take out from all your experiences that you've been through in your life, what would that be? None. Why?
Because like I said, with every loss, there's a lesson.
Gotcha.
So there may have been a loss, but that's something that I learned. And like I say, knowledge is power. So me giving up that experience is me giving up a lesson. Me giving up a lesson, that's me giving up knowledge. So everything happens for a reason. You may not know it there, but everything passes. You'll sit down one day and be like, oh, once upon a time. So I would not give up any of my experiences.
That answer is a brilliant one. The only problem I have is knowledge is no power. Knowledge is potential power. It only becomes power when you use it. Because
True.
You might have the knowledge,
but you don't use it. Absolutely. So knowledge is potential power. Correct.
But I like you though. And the last question, if there was one decent advice you could give to your younger self, what would it be?
Go for it. There are opportunities that I missed out on or I didn't take because the fear of the unknown. Like I said, like earlier on in life, I knew it, but I wish I practiced it. You can't be afraid to take a loss. You know what I'm saying? Like you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. You know what I'm saying? You might miss, but still go for it. Like, just do it. Like, I've done a lot. Like I said, I've had my successes, but, there have been times where if I actually just did it, just went through it, just made that one step, like, it would have been a different story. So just go for it. No fear. Like, you can't be afraid to take the loss. The loss is a lesson. You want to fail as much as you can to learn, especially at your younger age where you don't have that much to lose or you have more time to like catch up or get back. That's your time to, like take those risks. Take those risks, learn, grow, move on, have no fear.
Yeah. Hey guys, you got it. Go for it.
Absolutely.
Don't be scared of losing.
No fear.
Because life is all about losses. You're going to lose, but you're going to gain and win.
Absolutely.
If you're scared of winning, you're not even going to go for it. So definitely go for it. Is there anything you want to say before we end this episode today?
Well, I just want to thank you for, bringing me out here. It was a great time. It reminds me, like I told you, it reminds me back of my days when I used to do media. So this setup and all of this, great time hanging out with you. Ever since the first day I met you, I won't never forget. When I was walking through and I heard these Afro beats banging, I'm like, who's jamming? Like this. I'm like, oh, there's my people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, I'm happy to be here. Watching your podcast. You're doing a great thing here. I see the path you're taking, and I'm always in support of that. So I'm really happy that you brought me here, and I'm glad to share my experiences here with you.
Thank you very much for coming to the show and sharing your insightful wisdom with all of us. Because
pleasure.
I was taking notes in my mind. I'm going to start writing them up when we stop this.
Oh, yeah.
So I really appreciate you and thank you. We're still going to run this again. Hey guys, it was a great episode. I hope you learned a lot of lessons today. I hope you were taking note as well, because this guy was full with wisdom, and he's a great guy, a very intelligent guy as well, and his life experiences is awesome. And if you've not been to Africa, like I said, check out those 3 countries. Africa is the way to go. Oh, yeah. Check it out, please, and make sure you're liking the video, sharing, and subscribe. Thank you very much for everything you do. As always, I'm just your humble servant, Benrolins, so on them. Thank you very much. This episode comes to an end. Thank you for watching Benrolins Blueprint Podcast. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.